Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 12th Annual Wild Wisconsin Winter Web Conference. And if you've been here for many of the other sessions, you're tired of me saying that, but we say it anyway in case there are first timers at any of the sessions. My name is Jamie Machik. I work with the Wisconsin Valley Library Service. I'm also the coordinator for this conference, and assisting me today is Jean Anderson, the awesome Jean Anderson, who works for the South Central Library System. Jean is also helps with the conference, as well as Leah Langby, who was just moderating the programming track today. So thank you, Jean and Leah. We could not do this without you. Okay, we have a treat for our closing session. This person is not a librarian. It is Benjamin Chan, who is a 9-time runaway Jeopardy champion. And I met Ben this past summer at a local, I'm just going to say a local establishment where there may or may not have been, where they may or may not serve adult beverages. Let's just put it that way. And of course, in my extrovertedness, I went up to him right away and said, "Are you?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Can we take a selfie?" He said, "Yes." And we became friends. I think we're friends.
Best friends.
Know.
Jamie's my best friend.
We are friends. So without further ado, let's continue with our closing session today, Jeopardy, Libraries, and Democracy with Ben Chan. And Ben, whenever you're ready.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Jamie. Thanks for the invitation. I'll start by saying, actually, I saw in the chat, I think from Allie Kraus, that your fiance has been encouraging you to apply, and as part of now an ambassador for Jeopardy, what we tell everybody is you should take the anytime test, because that's what it's there for. It's for folks like us to get in the pool and see how we do when we wind up on Jeopardy, because, it's folks like you and I who are actually, it turns out, as they say in the ad, you could be the next great Jeopardy champion. So you should definitely go for it. So I'll say I do have some connection to libraries. I am married to the director of the library at St. Norbert College. And I think I want to, as I've been thinking a lot about this topic, the subtitle of my talk is why I love the library even more than I love Jeopardy. So I'm going to take the opportunity to try to share some aspects of Jeopardy with you. We'll play a couple of categories to give you a feel of what Jeopardy is like. One of the categories is book related, and then maybe give you a couple of my ideas of why it is that I love the library, because it's, I think, something that everybody loves, but we don't articulate, I think, as well as we could sometimes. So there I am, just my background. Why I've been invited here is that I won the lottery in being chosen to be on Jeopardy, and then once I got there, I played to the best of my ability. I kind of surprised myself. I did very well. I did something. I did set a funny record where I was the first person to win their first 9 games all in runaways, meaning I couldn't be caught going into Final Jeopardy, right? So I made a decent amount of money, and then I think the other thing, if you when people encounter me, a lot of people ask about the end of my of my time on Jeopardy, because I lost in a notable way where I misspelled a word in a way that a lot of people were upset about. So actually, that clip was interesting because they wound up talking about the misspelling on the Today Show. Of course, overall, it's been an amazing experience. It's the thing that I tell people about my experience taping Jeopardy is that I've never felt more at home than when I was playing Jeopardy. But that's actually, as I was thinking about this talk, that wasn't exactly true, because there's somewhere I realized that I feel more at home at than anywhere else, and it's in fact the library. So I think it's fair to say I wouldn't have been successful at Jeopardy had I not spent a lot of my youth in the library. I think when Jamie first asked me to give whether I'd be interested in presenting at this conference, I mentioned to her that I have amazingly fond memories of my first childhood library. Actually, this is the thing. I just had to catch myself that the library I was thinking about then, the Auburndale Library in Queens, wasn't my first childhood library. My first childhood library was the Elmhurst Library, right? But the Auburndale Library was where I spent a lot of time between maybe the ages of 5 and 12, and where my parents could just drop us off, leave me and my sisters there for a few hours, and know that we would be better for it and not have to worry about us. And I realized, even though I went immediately to that very kind of homey early childhood memory, the library has been a home for me in the decades since. So I still spend a fair amount of time in New York visiting my family. I don't have my own place there. And so in New York, there's a real need for those third spaces, right? Places where you can be out in public in a shared space. And one of the libraries, I just note because it's an interesting library, the Queens Library in Flushing is probably my home library now when I visit New York. You can see it's in the bottom left. It's the glass building there. It's set on the corner of a very busy immigrant neighborhood in Queens, Flushing. I think it's the most trafficked public library in the country. It's has 5,000 visitors a day on average. So it's an amazing space, and it's where I go when I visit New York, where I need a place where I can, feel like I'm at home. So I think that's what I want. What I want my agenda for today is to address this question. Right, this is a nice book I found while I was doing some light research for this talk. I think it's from Wayne. I'm going to say Weigand, who I know has Wisconsin connections. It's a People's History of the American Public Library. And, it's that Americans love their public libraries, but there's a question as to why, right? That despite the fact that the American Public Library has been strongly identified with the concept of equal educational opportunity, it's difficult to prove that these civic institutions are essential to democracy. For the most part, its alumni are anonymous and invisible. All right, so as I mentioned at the top, I want to take this opportunity to maybe try to articulate just from my experience why I love the public library, and maybe that'll be helpful in thinking about democracy in a different way. Okay, so I'll have an agenda. We're going to play a little bit of Jeopardy, civics-themed Jeopardy, in a minute. And introduce a puzzle, roughly the puzzle that one reviewer of that book by Weigand on People's History of the Public Library notes is, if we love libraries and Jeopardy so much, why are we so poorly informed as Americans? The second round, after some book Jeopardy, is my proposal, my idea is that the reason we like libraries and why I love Jeopardy so much is that they're sites of empowerment. And then finally, I think the library, especially, I think, is a place of empowerment through a kind of very deep and expansive play. Okay, so that's the plan. Let's play some Jeopardy. Okay, so I'm going to put a link to a Google form into the chat so that those who want to play along can play along. I hope this works. I play tested it only with myself, not with a large crowd, but it should work okay. So I'll give you a moment to get into that form.
I was able to get in, so.
Okay.
So is this where we record our answers?
This is where well, technically, can you see it? Hosts and panelists, everyone, sorry, here we go.
Oh, he's posting it again. There it is.
All right. So we're going to go through 5, on Jeopardy, I give the answers and you supply the questions. You don't have to frame things in the form of a question. All you have to do is put the correct response in the blank space. Okay. Now, as you can see, there are no clues on your form because I think to get a taste of what Jeopardy's like, there has to be some time sensitivity involved. So I'll go through the clues from the 200 to the $1,000 level in order. I'll give you a little more time than you would get on the show since you did not sign up to be on the show. So I'll give you a little more time than you get if you're on the show. But once I'm through with the reading of the clue and get maybe 10 seconds after I'm done, I'm going to move on to the next one. So if you don't have it, you just don't have it. Okay, so here we go. Civics for $200. House debates are presided over by the person in this congressional position. Okay. Oh, don't say it in the chat. Put it in the form. Okay. Civics for 4. Term for withdrawal from the Union as by 11 states in 1860 and 61. Everybody can record their responses in the chat. I'll post the form again. There we go. All right, civics for 6. Hamilton said using this group to choose the president rather than direct popular vote was, quote, excellent. Civics for 8. In June 2012, the president invoked this right over Operation Fast and Furious Papers. Finally, for 1,000, for a constitutional amendment to take effect, this fraction of the states must ratify it. Okay.
So now
So
should we hit
yeah,
submit?
you hit submit. I think I've set up things up so that the Google form will tally your responses and grade you.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't do very well.
So if you didn't do very well, you're not alone, but well, we'll come back. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I wanted to give people the feel for a little bit of how Jeopardy goes. We'll get another chance later. I myself on the show, I always did better later after I was warmed up, so we can consider that a warm up. Yeah, I'm sorry, Laura. I tried to make weirdly Google Forms is case sensitive, so I tried to put things. Oh yeah, if you put question marks, oh capitalizations. Here we go. Oh no. Okay. So you can check the notes. Yeah. So for the future rounds, if you leave out the question marks, you'll do better because you'll be marked correct. So something that libraries and Jeopardy have in common is that they're super popular. So this is again from Weigand. Kind of remarkably, you may be familiar with this. I was not. 98% of people identified their public library experience as very or mostly positive, which is a ridiculously high satisfaction rate. Right. The popularity of Jeopardy may be most easily seen in its ratings. Right. In the most recent full season ratings that I could get, it averaged over a full season 9.2 million viewers every day. which is more than the Major League World Series averaged this fall. And one of the notable things about this for both libraries and democracy is that these are both very popular institutions, and it's kind of cool that they're very popular institutions because they're both, for lack of a better word, pretty nerdy institutions. And it's not that common that we have popular institutions that are also intellectually supportive. And so for this reason, again, from the Weigand, you can see that there's a lot of rhetoric within libraries that's like that libraries are a cornerstone of a free society, right? So from E.L. Doctorow or from David McCullough about our library cards being one of the most important parts of a free society, right? Similarly, on the writings about Jeopardy, there's a celebration, the thought that Jeopardy celebrates some of the things or traits that we might want in a well-rounded democratic citizenry, right? That the variety of knowledge you need on Jeopardy is similar to what we want from democratic citizens. So the puzzle that's raised by some commentators on libraries and Jeopardy is that despite the popularity of these institutions and despite the growth of formal education, despite the spread of information technology, our civic knowledge doesn't seem to be much better than it was 80 years ago, right? I won't go through these stats. It's been well documented. Now, what my idea is, and I think it's not going to be, I think, a huge surprise to people here, is that, okay, so given the news cycle, where I think we're all, the headlines this week or something like, and now it looks inevitable that the country is going to get the election that nobody wants, right? We're getting a replay of 2020, right? We're having another Trump-Biden election, which is kind of paradoxical. It's because it's something that nobody wants. Now, when we look back at the root of the word democracy, right, we see that it comes from people and power, so that democracy just means people power. And I think when I was thinking about the Weigand, my own experience is that I suspect that the reason libraries are so popular is because people feel empowered when they're at the library, right? And it's not about taking that knowledge and going somewhere else. It's just like being in the library is an empowering experience. And I guess a thing that I would that I've been thinking about myself is that we don't have to justify the value of the library outside of the library, right? And that it's a mistake to think of, say, people being empowered only at the voting booth, right? That the empowerment of people happens in all sorts of areas, and that our image of an empowered citizenry, like our mental picture of it, we should be picturing people while they're at the library rather than while they're at the voting booth. So one way of thinking about this point is, I think a question that I think is as important as any question in philosophy. I'm a philosophy professor, by the way. Right? It's like a question that's as important as any other in philosophy is what would we do if there were nothing that we had to do? And it's easy to come up with things to do when there are things you need to do. You just do the things you need to do. But one of the core questions of philosophy is what do we do when there's nothing we have to do, right? And for me, I'll say here's a quick answer is something I would do if there's nothing I had to do. I actually quite enjoy playing Jeopardy. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to play more Jeopardy. It's going to be about books. And then I'm going to get into my final point about why libraries are actually even more lovable than Jeopardy. So I'm going to give you another form. Yeah, so stick to short answers here, probably the best for the auto scoring. And it'll be about books. All right. Oh yeah. I think it should work. Wait, did I give you the right link? Okay, uh-oh. Let me actually give you the right link. Thank you for that. Oh, it says, okay, I'll change the name. Okay. I think it's actually the same link, but I updated the name. I just had forgotten to change the name on the top of the form. This should work. Okay. Let's get back to the slideshow. Okay. Thank you. So Civics for Two from 2006. It's Cormac McCarthy's title, Post-Apocalyptic Byway. Okay, for 400. Dickens' only true mystery novel dealt with this title man's disappearance. Oh, that was a bit quick, sorry. For $600. Angie Thomas used you for a pronoun in the title of this 2017 young adult page turner. For 800, his Midnight's Children is set in places like Kashmir and Delhi. Finally, for 1,000, The Awakening is by this woman with the composer's surname. Okay. That has been QuickBooks. So these are actual Jeopardy clues. Yeah, The Awakening. So I think I want to offer a general answer to this question. What would you do if there were nothing you had to do? Right. Which is, I think, that the best general answer we have to that question is what we would do in this situation is to play. Right. And play can take many different forms, but the interesting thing about play, which is pointed out by this philosopher Stephen Asma, is that at its heart, play is a way of being that resists the instrumental expedient mode of existence. Right? In play, we do not measure ourselves in terms of tangible productivity, extrinsic value, but instead, our physical and mental lives have intrinsic value of their own. It provides the source from which other extrinsic goods flow and eventually return. And there are lots of different ways of playing, right? We can play music, right? We can play Jeopardy, we can play in other ways. Now, I think the interesting thing about Jeopardy, I think people often think, there's this weird thing about Jeopardy, it's in the answer and question format, right? I think that's actually an important part of it, in that it allows um, Jeopardy to give kind of playful characterizations of the things it's asking about. Right. So, if we reverse the order of things, right, the response, what is Wisconsin, has been the correct response to these. We flip it around, right? The way Jeopardy has answered the question, what is Wisconsin? Has said, Wisconsin is, what is Wisconsin? Wisconsin, what is Wisconsin? Here's the answer. Sheboygan is this, in this state, is known as the bratwurst capital of the world. What is Wisconsin? This state's name originally began with OU until Congress changed it to a W. What is Wisconsin? Orson Welles' birthplace of Kenosha is in this state. All right. What is Wisconsin? Maybe my favorite one. According to The Onion, its people have slimmed down by adhering to a strict diet of just one basket of cheese curds at every meal. And so obviously in real life, that would be an odd way of answering the question, what is Wisconsin? But when we reverse the order of things on Jeopardy, that's how the state of Wisconsin is characterized on Jeopardy, which is a more interesting way probably of characterizing the state of Wisconsin than if we answered the question of what is Wisconsin directly. So when it comes returning to the asthma quote, right, that play is a way of being that resist the instrumental and expedient mode of existence, right? Ultimately, Jeopardy is a game that you're trying to win, right? So you're trying to accumulate more points and then therefore more money than the other players, right? So there is a goal to Jeopardy, right? It's playful, but you're also trying to win, right? So there's an instrumental value to it. By contrast, there's nothing you have to do to enjoy a library, right? You don't need an agenda to enjoy libraries. And I think when we think about the value of libraries, or when I think about the value of it to me, I don't think of the library as supporting any particular goals that I have, right? It's not even in my view, does it have the purpose of creating a better informed electorate, right? The overwhelming sense that I get from my experience at the library is that it's not for a goal, it's for us, right? And that translates to the fact that we're able to enjoy it without having any particular goal in mind, right? And in that way, it's actually more fundamentally playful, right, than any game with a given goal, right? That it's a place where our own physical and mental lives, they're valued for their own sake, right? And that's what makes it so valuable, and why I would characterize it as a place of deep play. Okay, so that's the one thought I had to share. I'm going to end. There's no form here. We can put the correct response into the chat. I'm going to end with Final Jeopardy. This is an actual Final Jeopardy clue that appeared on the show. I changed the category title a little bit. I've called it Best Song Ever, and here's the clue. It was originally dedicated to a Midwest football team. It's said that Sousa called it the best college song he'd ever heard. I think that seems like, yes, yes, fantastic. Everybody's getting it. The correct response is, what is on Wisconsin? So on that note, good job, everybody. Well done. That's all I've got.
Okay, so we have a lot of time. I figured there might be a lot of questions for Ben, either on Jeopardy, on that experience, or on what is coming up for him. Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about the next step for you on the
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention.
show?
Yeah, it's been interesting. There's a writer's strike, so if you're a fan, you've noticed there's been kind of an unusual schedule this year. Just this week, I signed my non-disclosure agreement because I'll be flying out. I think I'm allowed to share that I'll be flying out in 10 days or so to playing the Tournament of Champions. And then that'll air. I think they haven't told us, but the internet tells me that the Tournament of Champions will start to air on television um, February 23rd or so. So um, I'll do my best for the librarians and for Wisconsin.
So how are you preparing for that right now? Is it different than how you prepared for the time you were on about a year ago? Or what do you do to prepare for Jeopardy?
Um, I think that the thanks for all the well wishes. Yeah, I think the lists, you know, the kind of lists, it's good to be really good on lists, right? Because there are certain things that if you're a fan, you'll see show up. Like today, I don't want to give it away. Let's see, yesterday, I don't know what came up recently. Oh, spoiler alert! Right, there's a novel, Final Jeopardy today, which I saw early, involves an 1869 novel, right? And so, a famous 1869 novel, right? So, kind of having they like to refer to dates a lot of times because dates are easy ways. It's actually hard to make a clue that uniquely describes one book.
Mm,
So if you, because like that could have happened in 5 books, I don't know, right? Like,
true.
and so dates are one way that they're able to. I think that's why they rely on them. So for big things in the canon, it's helpful to know when they're written. So maybe that's a little insight. Turns out it's like a lot of different things. So they're like, you know, you kind of, I guess the big picture is it's written by human beings, right? And so human beings have tendencies. And so if you're trying to figure out, say when you're reading the newspaper, watching the news, like, oh, given what I know about the Jeopardy writers' room, what they've told me through the clues that they write, is this I've developed a pretty good sense when I watch the news. Oh, this is probably something I need to remember because this is the kind of thing that the people in that room think is worth knowing.
Okay. So how do you keep track of everything? Do you keep a document? Do you keep a list? Do you keep it up here? Or how do you, like, if you see something in the paper, like, do you keep it, do you write it down somewhere or have a notebook, or where do you do that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's I have a we I think basically all of the contestants now rely on flashcard apps, right? Where you say this is mine. It's like it was already open. It's like, oh right, I got to make a new flashcard. The nice thing about the flashcards apps are they're now smart. They know when you get things right and wrong, and then they can judge when you need to see that flashcard again. So unlike physical flashcards, you don't have to go through all of the flashcards all the time. Right? The
Okay.
app will try to put you on the right schedule for when you need to study.
What's the most nerve-wracking part of being on the show? We hear about, like, the buzzer is the biggest thing, like the timer, and if you buzz too soon, you're locked out. Or what is your strategy for that, or how do you navigate that?
Um, I think the buzzer stuff. I think the buzzer stuff. The key is just not to go early, right? So to make sure you don't get over anxious. People, you can it can be a negative feedback cycle. Like people, I noticed playing and watching. Um, there's a doom loop that happens, right? If you don't get in, then you try harder and you start to buzz earlier. But that's a problem because if you buzz too early, you get locked out for a certain amount of time, and that makes it very hard to ever get in. So just avoid the doom loop. The most nerve-wracking part for me was daily doubles. Um, so it's hard because you're the other parts like I found it during the game itself when you're just buzzing. You have a choice to buzz or not. Daily doubles, it's like, oh, you have no choice. You have to say something. Plus, everybody's looking at you, right? Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
the focus is all on you for a little bit. So,
How did you know how much to wager for a daily double, or what did you typically do? Does it
um,
depend on the subject matter, or did that
a
not?
little bit. Yeah, it depends on situation. Um, uh, I think in general, so it's good. I think, yeah, I noticed right when I'd say sorry, I was gonna have a few different things going on in my head, but in general, I think people have gotten better about this. People actually still see it though, but our instincts make us bet too little on daily doubles and too much on Final Jeopardy.
Okay.
And you can still see that. It's less now because now there are websites that, it's easy if you Google, most contestants will see this advice before they appear, including me. That's why I know it. Right. But like our instincts are to bet, our instincts are generally lead us to bet too little on daily doubles and too much on Final Jeopardy. If you look at what actually works or not. So I think that's I can that's what I can say. So usually you should probably bet more on daily doubles than you would think, and less on Final Jeopardy than you think.
Okay. A question came in from Mark. How do you, I mean, you talk about the flashcards, but how do you even begin to study for the game? Because it literally could be on any subject. Or do you notice a pattern in certain subjects, game to game? Like, do you know, okay, there might be something on sports, or there might be something on literature, or something on pop culture, or how do you know where to start?
Yeah. So I think you'll notice the things that there's almost in every game, there's going to be some. So the most common categories are literature, history, geography. Actually, it's geography, history, literature. Right. And you'll also notice that the pop culture shows up. Rarely do they put daily doubles in pop culture. Right. Those sports shows up. Rarely do they put daily doubles in sports. Right. They tend to put daily doubles in categories that are more academic, right? More canonical. And so there's kind of there's kind of an interest when we think about the canon. I mean, that's kind of like a different topic, right? It would have been interesting, but less fun for a closing session was about like the curation of Jeopardy clues and the curation of libraries and, how we think about, like my experience as a kid was, um, as a child of immigrants, right, was and immigrants who didn't have a high school degree, right? It's like, oh, school is one thing, school is awesome, right? But libraries were another. Library. I think that's why I was so drawn to libraries and Jeopardy was they gave me a sense of what it is that I should know, right? Beyond what I was just getting taught in school, right? Was that and I could see on the tables, I could see in the stacks, I could see on the Jeopardy board what smart people thought are things that were worth knowing, right? And so I think that's there's to take it back, right? There is a clear when you look at what the Jeopardy writers do in terms of where the daily doubles are, there is a pretty clear prioritization or hierarchy of things that are worth knowing, history, geography, literature, versus things that are fun to put on the board, but not things that we want your Jeopardy fate to really ride on. Like, memes. Memes will show up, but there's not going to be a daily double about memes.
Right. So as someone who's not, I mean, you're obviously a big fan of libraries and as you mentioned, married to a librarian. I'm just curious, what do you think like still a misconception is about public libraries, I guess, and what could we do better as people in the profession or as librarians to advocate for ourselves and for what we do? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think stuff. I think that's what I had this I think last time I saw you, there was someone who was it was on the chat, a bit skeptical about the public funding of libraries now because information's so widely available, right? Like, why do we need libraries when we have
Google? Yes.
we have Google, right? And right, that's why it's an interest. We face similar things in higher education in terms of pressure. I think we have less public support. I think it's because people's experience is actually less positive in formal education than it is in libraries, right? So I don't know. I think that's I don't know, like I didn't want to. It's like I'm married to. I had like I went to be. As my wife told me, she's like, "Why are they inviting you to give a talk? You don't know anything about library." It's like I said, I'm sensitive to that, right? And so, what my thought is, I think there's something to this idea that, yeah, there's something. I think there's something, maybe something worth mining in this idea that, or that has perhaps been underexplored. Um, the idea that libraries aren't for something else, right? And that's actually why they're so. That's why we have such a positive experience there, right? Anywhere else, it's like, any other space, public space, you're trying to be sold something, or you have to be into something. You have to have some like you have to buy something or have to be buy into the particular thing that space is about,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Whereas the public library, yeah, public libraries, like I said, it's really the space where it's most purely for you, right? At any space, I think, in a way that I think just because I barely scratched the surface of, right? But I think there's something about that. Yeah.
well, I think that's a great segue, I guess, into our ending of this session and into the conference. Anything else you want to add, I guess, before we close today, just on.
I'd say, yeah, if anybody winds up, I'm easy to find. I'm at St. Norbert College. So if you wind up being, called for a test, if you want to be on Jeopardy, you should take the. Oh, Catherine, that's good. If you wind up getting an invite to do a Zoom audition for Jeopardy, or even better, you wind up, a year from now being invited to be on the show, and you need somebody to play practice games with, by all means, look me up at St. Norbert College, and uh, it'd be awesome to help another Wisconsinite um, shine on the Alex Trebek stage. I think we have another question.
Oh, yes, you're right. Is there an intimidation factor on the show at all about librarians? Because some of them have done so well historically.
Yeah, yeah. Who was I was? Oh, right. Who was I? Think I was terrified. Did I lose to a librarian? No, I think she's a. Who did I lose? Who did I lose to? I forgot what she does. Um, yes, there is an intimidation. Everybody isn't intimidated by the librarians. Um, uh, Lynn's a retired museum. The person I lost to is a retired museum educator, which is similar, right? So
It is
I was,
similar.
yeah, actually I was intimidated by her, and I wound up losing to her. And then, so yeah, so you have an intimidation factor. So you should definitely try to get on the show because you'll have a leg up just by scaring people.
Okay, you heard all that from a 9-time champion. So thank you so much, Ben, for closing off our conference and providing us with some food for thought. I love the idea that libraries are for us. I think that's I think that's just a great way, a great send off for all of us to think about.
Yeah, I think
So again,
you're doing a great, like, it's people feel it, right? Yeah, it's
we
amazing. So
hope so. I mean, it's been an interesting last couple of years. The opening session was on, a little bit of book banning, and we've had some interesting times with COVID. We've had some turnover in the profession. So I think while we feel that love, there are some challenges like there are in other things. So I think it's important. I think it's important for people to hear that positive message that, they're still appreciated and the work we do is still appreciated.
yeah, um, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
So thank
it's
you,
lovely. It was
everybody.
lovely being here with you. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, for participating in this session, as well as all of the sessions in the conference this year. Please be on the lookout for information on next year's conference. As we mentioned, all of the slides and resources will be available on the conference website by Monday. Is that the 29th? Yes, January 29th. Again, I want to thank all the public library systems and the Wisconsin DPI, Public Library Services team, for their support. And I just hope you have a great rest of your day, a great week, a great January. a great 2024, and we hope to see you next year for the conference. So long.